Hello, welcome back to the channel. Hello, welcome back to the channel. Most smartwatch videos these days talk about speed, performance, but what if a smartwatch could actually keep your parents or your grandparents or the older people in your life safe? We're going to talk about fraud detection, health alerts, easy communication, and emergency features. Who is this video for? This video is for your parents, this video is for your grandparents, for people who want techie, and for families who want peace of mind. We're going to be talking about different variants of the Apple Watch, but I'm going to point out specific Apple Watches depending on the category. And the first category we're going to talk about is fraud detection. So fraud detection, you're wearing your watch and your Apple Watch notices you take a very huge fall based on the sensors that are currently in the watch. So cool, boom, I'm walking, it notices I fall. The sensors on the watch on this side, literally, the sensors are right here. The sensors are going to tap my wrist. And if I don't move, it's going to sound an alarm and display an alert. Now, if I'm conscious or if I'm able, I can cancel the alert. But if I don't, it will call emergency services if there is no movement for a minute. And then once that call ends, it's going to immediately send a message to my emergency contacts. And that's listed in my medical ID, and it will also have my location. So God forbid I fall, I can't move, I'm not able to interact with my watch for a minute, it will call emergency services. My emergency contacts will get a notification on the situation and my location, and the ambulance and my emergency contacts will come to me to make sure if I'm okay, basically. Why does this matter? A call can be very dangerous very quickly if somebody's alone. There's been many cases where some people I've known have fallen and they've been by themselves and the worst has happened. And there's been many cases where people were wearing their Apple Watches and they did fall and it has actually saved their lives. However, if your watch for whatever reason wrongfully detects a fall, you have the option to cancel the siren, to cancel the alert, so fear not. It's important to note the availability of fall detection. So it is available on your Apple Watch 4 or later and your Apple Watch SE or later. It's also available on all of your Apple Watch Ultra models, which is what this is. This is the very first Apple Watch Ultra. So you don't need the latest and greatest Apple Watch here for that feature. So that's really, really good. Moving on to hypertension notifications. Now, this is something that recently came out in the past couple of years, so you will need one of the newer Apple Watches. So you'll need your Apple Watch Series 9, 10, 11, as well as your Apple Watch Ultra 2 and 3. Unfortunately, hypertension notifications are not available on any versions of an Apple Watch SE, which is really annoying. I really hoped that they could bring it to the Apple Watch SE 3, but alas. Sometimes subtle health changes go unnoticed, but having gentle notifications and monitoring can help people stay aware of their health. So your hypertension notifications are really for peace of mind, early awareness, and it can encourage healthier habits. What are your hypertension notifications? It has some sensors again in your watch where it dictates where you could have higher blood pressure than normal. It's not an actual accurate blood pressure monitor that you can use to track your blood pressure, but if it senses things are looking a bit suspicious, it will be like, hey, things don't look right here. Can you go and check your blood pressure on an actual monitor? Or you can go and just see your GP, hospital, whatever, what have you. But it's just a reminder, or it's just a cheeky alert to be like, hey, things don't look good. Let's go and get this checked out. And if you do see that notification happening a lot more frequently, it could be a sign to change your diet, giving you hints to exercise more, any of those things. But it is not 100% accurate because it's only a suspicion of said hypertension. So just bear that in mind, but it's also very good to know. Moving on to emergency SOS. So there's a really handy side button on the side of all of the Apple Watches, and it allows you to call emergency services very quickly. So I'm going to hold down my side button, and then I have the option to ring a siren if I'm in a serious situation. It can bring up my medical ID. Perhaps somebody wants to see this really quickly, or I can't remember from the top of my head, so I'm going to show my GP or somebody somebody that needs to see it for whatever reason. And then you have SOS, your emergency call. So you swipe that, you'll be able to speak to emergency services very, very quickly, which is nice and handy. Again, all of these features, hopefully you don't need to use them, but it's very good to know how to use them. And then I want to touch on some easy communications that's available on your Apple Watch as well. So I'll briefly speak about each one, and then if you want more detail, I can go into it in another video. But you can answer calls from your wrist, so you don't necessarily want to walk with your phone with you all the time. You can see who's calling you just by looking at your wrist. You have voice over depending on what's on your screen. You can triple press the home button. You can double press the home button depending on what you have it set to watch. And you're in public, you may not want people listening to your business, so perhaps slap some AirPods or some headphones in while you're doing that voice to text if you're in public. And then you can dictate some quick messages. So if somebody sends you a message or you'd like to send somebody a message, you could do that from your watch. You could literally open up whatever messaging services you're using. Let's just say for ease of the video, it's iMessage. You tap on iMessage and you can dictate the message that you'd like to send to a person, which is nice if you don't want to type on the small screen. That can be very handy, but again, perhaps you don't want to be in public talking about your business, so just bear that in mind. Another nice thing is pinging your iPhone. So if you go into your control center, you just tap your side button and then you'll see a phone with some brackets either side of it. You tap that and then your phone is ringing and you'll be able to find your phone from your watch, which is really nice. And depending on the Apple Watch you have, I think it's your Apple Watch Ultra 2 and newer, it will show you where your phone is based on where you are in proximity to your phone. So it will have arrows and then it will be able to find your iPhone that way if that works for you as well. But again, that specific feature is Apple Watch dependent and iPhone dependent. You would need to have one of the later models, but if that doesn't concern you, you just need to hear your phone. This is basically available on all of your Apple Watches, which is nice to know. The last feature that I'm going to mention in this section is the walkie-talkie. Me personally, I use this all the time. I was in the UK, my mum was in America, and we were able to walkie-talkie. Both people have to have their Apple Watches on so that they can at least get notified when somebody's trying to send or trying to walkie-talkie them. But picture this, you're on your Apple Watch, you want to see who's available, you tap the person and then you hold down and then you speak to the person and they can hear you real time, and vice versa, real time. That's very, very handy. It saves you from having to call people if it's a real quick question that you have. I think that's really cool and I use that quite often. So you're welcome. But all of these things just kind of remove the friction of using technology. I also want to touch on some accessibility features. Again, I'll briefly touch over it, but if you want more information, I can do so in another video for you. We're going to talk about larger text. You're going to go into your settings, accessibility, and then you'll be able to choose your font size. If you want it to be really, really big, you can do so. If you want it to be on the smaller side so you can fit more things in the screen, you can do so. But the option exists. There's an option of having a really loud speaker. So if you're harder of hearing, you can turn that up so that it's easier for you to hear. There's an option of having a bright display. Now, I would say that this is Apple Watch dependent because the newer Apple Watches get a lot brighter than the older Apple Watches. So your Series 11, your Ultra 2 and 3 will have a lot brighter screens than any of those older models, but the option exists. You also have an option of having a simple interface. A lot of the tech gurus, if you want to call them, will have a lot of things happening on the phone, your smart stack, bells and whistles going on around the watch. If you don't want all of that, you have an option of having a simple interface. It's nice that that's given to you because things can get quite overwhelming on this small screen. And then you have Siri support. I'll be honest, I don't use Siri that much because sometimes it takes a long time to connect to the internet, but that's because I have the very first Apple Watch Ultra. You'd think it would be fine because it's not actually that old, but there you are. If you want to ask Siri for the weather, if you want to ask Siri for basic things, it can tell you, but a lot of the times you need to be connected to internet, which means you need to be connected to your phone. I'll get onto that in a second because there are some drawbacks of the Apple Watches. Your battery and charging. So if you're an older adult, or if you're watching this video on behalf of an older adult, you're going to want to have a routine basically. So you're going to want to make sure your Apple Watch is charged all the time so that you can make use of all of the features that I've mentioned. So I would suggest putting it on charge every night, let it charge overnight, wake up in the morning, slap that bad boy on, go on about your day. When you're about to go to bed, slap that bad boy on charge. That's why I'd advise if you have a series 1 through to 11 based on the time of this video. But if you have an Apple Watch Ultra 1, 2 or 3, me personally, I know that their batteries are bigger, so you can get a day and a half, 2 days out of your Apple Watch if you're using it very lightly. So I would say every day and a half, slap that bad boy on charge. But if you're more about convenience, slap that bad boy on charge every night if you so desire, just so that you're never at a loss. You want to be on the safe side. Now let's get onto those downsides. I did mention you wanting your Apple Watch to be connected to your iPhone. That's right, your Apple Watch needs an iPhone, and if you don't have an iPhone, there's no point of having an Apple Watch. So there's that. What is nice though is that you don't need the latest iPhone to make use of these features. A lot of the times you just need an iPhone 11 or newer. The iPhone 18 should be coming out this year, so an iPhone that's 7 years old surely, hopefully won't be that expensive if you don't have one already. Another downside is that your Apple Watch can feel quite overwhelming initially, so I would advise having some help during the setup so that when you have your Apple Watch you don't feel overwhelmed when you're using it. So you may need some additional setup, or you may need some help when setting up your Apple Watch so that they can do all of the features for you, all of those voice to text features, the bigger font, the brighter screen, all of that stuff. Use them to your advantage. Now, if there are some other smartwatches where you don't need an iPhone, or you don't need a specific phone to make full use out of the health benefits, please let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to check that out. But as you know, or you may not know, this is an Apple focused channel. Low key, I'm in the Apple ecosystem, so I can only advise on what I feel strongly drawn to, if you know what I mean. But this video is really important to me because imagine an older adult who is close to you, a loved one that's going on a walk by themselves, or they're home alone and they have a fall or an accident. You want the very best outcome in that unfortunate situation, and that's why I think the Apple Watch comes in clutch for that. They could also forget their phone at home, but based on the sensors and the features that are available on that watch, it could actually save their life. Apple Watches have saved lives in the past, and I know will continue to do so. So this is just a cheeky extra thing that you can do to be safe. But sometimes the best tech isn't the flashiest. It can be if you so choose to, don't get it twisted. No matter the age, you can be flashy all you want, but sometimes the tech can just make you feel safer. It can make you feel more connected, but it can also give you some independence. I know the older you get in some situations, the more dependent you can become. So this just gives you the extra boost of confidence, really. But overall, what is the best smartwatch that I would recommend for an older adult? If hypertension notifications isn't something that you're worried about, absolutely the Apple Watch SE, the SE1, SE2 or the SE3. But if hypertension notifications are important to you, definitely the Apple Watch Series 9, 10, 11 or Apple Watch Ultra 2 and 3. That's just my opinion. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to like, hype, subscribe, like, hype. Bye.